Okay, now let's get started. I will just share my screen. Give me a second. As you know, I am Dr. Preetika Chari. I am a neurologist and neurosurgeon practicing in the city of Chennai for the past 45 years. Today is International Epilepsy Day, the second Monday in February when it is celebrated world over. The theme for this year is Epilepsy is More Than Seizures. I have specialized training and specialized expertise in treating people with epilepsy and in epileptology. And I started Epicenter, which is an acronym for Epilepsy Institute and Center for Treatment, Training, Research and Education in Chennai in 1994. And since then, we have done a lot of unusual new things in the field of epilepsy in the city of Chennai. When we started our center in 1994, we brought in digital electroencephalography. Till then, we were doing what is called as analog EEG, where the needle would move on a piece of paper. Then we brought in the computerized digital EEG. We were also the first center in the whole private sector in whole of South India to bring the first digital video EEG machine into this city. The video EEG machine is very special because it helps us to identify the seizure because it is a time locked EEG together with the video, which shows us when a person has a fit, what exactly is happening in the EEG as well. And this helps us to classify the epilepsy and optimize the treatment for the patient, whether it is medical treatment or whether it is surgical treatment. We also pioneered epilepsy surgery in the private sector in 1998 in Apollo hospitals. And since then, we've done a lot. We've helped thousands and thousands of people with epilepsy to live better lives. And one of the slogans of Epicenter is to live a full life with everyone, like everyone, in spite of epilepsy. The other thing that we have been doing is we have been running support group activities. Initially, it was called Epi Club. Now it is called Abhaya. Abhaya means fear not. So that is the essence of that. Thanks to the pandemic, we have not been able to do our live programs. But I thought it is time that we initiated our patient awareness programs, our support group programs, through at least through the Zoom. And that is why today is actually the first attempt at restarting all those things because the future is going to be a hybrid kind of meeting. We are not going to be able to encourage or permit, in fact, people to come directly to a meeting. We ourselves may not be running a meeting directly in a hall with everybody sitting close to each other. So it is time that we started changing our method and adapting to the new normal, which is what we are doing through this. Today is the first attempt at running a patient awareness program from Epicenter for the public on the virtual platform. So, with that introduction, let us get into the main session itself. It's very important for us. Many people ask us, what is a seizure and what is epilepsy? A seizure is a single occurrence of a jerky movement or other features of a fit. It may be a loss of awareness, it may be just a twitching of the angle of the mouth, it may be twitching of an arm, it may be a generalized fit, it may be so many things. A seizure by itself does not need treatment with anti epileptic drugs or surgery over long term. It is an acute event, it is treated acutely and symptomatically, and very often it will have a precipitating cause. And the commonest precipitating cause will be either a low sugar because somebody has not been eating or they've been a diabetic and they overdid their medication or something, lack of sleep. many people who miss sleep for 2 3 days because they're traveling, because they're doing a project, whatever, many of them end up with a first time seizure. It may be like a German patient of mine who came to do some social work here. He spent 2 days continuously in our hot sun in the summer, doing helping in the field on some work, and then he went and had a major seizure. So there's very often a provocative aspect to it. Something provokes the seizure. And this kind of thing is not epilepsy. Epilepsy is defined as two or more than two, unprovoked. For no reason at all, the person will get a seizure. And at least two or more than two should be there in an individual for us to call it epilepsy. Now, anti epileptic drugs we use, we also use surgery, we use many kinds of, we use dietary treatments, we use many things to treat this epilepsy. And epilepsy, it's a chronic disorder, and medication has to be taken over a long period of time, minimum 3 to 5 years. But we'll give you a. Today, we will not be discussing too many facts about epilepsy, the disorder. We will be discussing the impact of epilepsy, especially on the psychosocial aspects and psychosocial life of the individual. So, let us, who gets epilepsy? Strictly speaking, anyone is at risk of developing epilepsy at any age, any time, any race, any economic status. You can be rich, poor, you can be anything. So, what is it that a person with epilepsy wants from those who don't have epilepsy? So, they say, do talk to me about my needs and how you can help. Many people, when they see a person or know that a person has got epilepsy, they hesitate to talk about the subject because they think the other person may get offended. Actually, a person with epilepsy will welcome this. Let me give you an example of a little girl who came to me when she was in the ninth standard. Her parents brought her to me. She used to get what are called as complex partial seizures. In that, what she'll do is like this, she'll lose awareness. She'll just look blank for a while and then come back. Now, what happened was many of her friends did not understand what they used to call her, you mad woman. They used to make fun of her. And this girl said, I'm not going to school anymore. So the parents brought her with the history of epilepsy, where she was getting 2 or 3 episodes like this in a week, and this fact that she was refusing to go to school. So I had a talk with the girl and told her, have you ever told your friends what is happening to you? She said, no, 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 I feel very shy to talk about it. So I said, stop feeling shy. And next time this happens, you tell them, look here, when this happens, I'm actually having a seizure. I'm not aware of what is happening around me. I'd appreciate if you could help me because it will come and it will go away in a little while. I'm working on getting it treated. But can you please help me? Just make me sit down, keep me safe, and be with me till it's over. So once she did that, all of them in the class were very eager to help her and to be with her. So it's also important for people with epilepsy to tell others that it's okay to talk about the epilepsy. And for those who don't have epilepsy, not to feel too bad about asking how they can help a person with epilepsy. And when you use words like fits, spells, epilepsy, attacks, and all that, sometimes it's offensive. Some people take objection. So just call them seizures. And if you either are ignorant about it, which is what this education program is about, or if you make a discrimination about it, it makes it harder for the real issues to be addressed. So the next thing is, after a seizure, some people are confused. They're confused for varying periods of time, maybe a few seconds, maybe even a few hours. So after the seizure is over, don't go on bugging the patient. Leave them alone for a while, but be with them. Don't leave them totally alone. They may be confused, they may be disoriented, they may be embarrassed because the seizure occurred in some unusual social situation. They may have wet their clothes because they passed urine during the fits. So they may be feeling very acutely embarrassed as well. And let them get back in track. Let them, gather themselves before you approach them. So these are all the ways in which we can be proactive around a person who has seizures. and how a person with epilepsy can also be proactive with the people around them. So, what are the important things we need to do? We need to guide the person from danger. So, if they're having a seizure, if they're having a pen in their hand and they do this, they can poke themselves. So, remove any harmful object from nearby, cushion the head, take away any objects from the hand. Don't give a bunch of keys because that also is an object which can hurt. Stay with the person until they're fully recovered. If the seizure goes on for more than 5 minutes, call an ambulance or call the family doctor or call whoever you can for help. Assist the breathing by gently placing the patient in the recovery position. Now, what is the recovery position? The recovery position is turning the person to the side, folding up one leg a little so that the chest is semi turned, and the breathing will be little freer if you do that. And be calm and be reassuring, especially of everybody else. Don't allow people to crowd around and things like that. What you need not do and should not do is to hold down a person with seizure. Now, when they're jerking like that, the tendency is for everybody to sit down and hold that. Don't put anything in the mouth. Don't move the person unless they are in a very dangerous position or posture or at a height or near water or something like that. Do not do anything to attempt to bring them around. Pouring water on the face, giving them water, putting a smelly shoe, putting onions. Don't do any of this. And do not give anything to eat or drink until they're completely recovered and able to have a sensible conversation with you. Now, this slide is probably the most important slide in the entire discussion today. Remember, people put a metal spoon in the mouth, they give iron keys, they put smelly socks, they hold shoes in front of the nose, they hold onions. They do not prevent seizures. So please don't do that. And what is the incidence of epilepsy? It's a very common condition. More than 50 million people have epilepsy all over the world. It's a neurological disorder. It's an electrical activity happening in the brain all the time. And a seizure will happen when there's a sudden burst of extra electrical activity which happens. And this is called epileptic activity. And when it intensifies, it produces a seizure. So there are different types of epilepsy, different causes for epilepsy. It can be low oxygen during birth, which can cause brain damage. There can be head injuries, stroke, brain tumors. There are a lot of genetic conditions today we know can cause epilepsy. There are infections like meningitis, encephalitis, and abnormal levels of calcium, B6, sodium, sugar. All of these can cause epilepsy. They can actually cause seizures. But if these seizures keep recurring, then it is called epilepsy. What is very interesting and which the WHO has found is that in low income countries, in which India becomes part of it, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Bolivia, tragedy that we are called low income, but not really in today's world because we have improved our GDP considerably. What they found was that the treatment gap, which means the number of people who have epilepsy who come for treatment. Now, many people, even if they have epilepsy, they think it's a visitation from the devil or a demon or something, or it can be treated with just this putting onions in front of the nose, or all these kind of myths are there. And so they don't come for treatment. And if you look at it, we are not too bad compared to the other three countries, but still there's a big treatment gap. And this treatment gap is mostly in our country in the rural areas. So it's very important for doctors and patients, for even urban patients and people in the urban area who may have any interest in just helping others, to inform people in villages and in the rural areas that epilepsy has got treatment. You come to the doctor, there is a chance of your getting seizure control. Because 60% of people will respond positively to the first drug that is given to them for the epilepsy treatment. And so early treatment is very, very important to have a good prognosis or a good outcome. Now, what is the methodology that one normally follows? When there is a first seizure, you go to the emergency department or to a general practitioner. They do diagnostic tests. and say it is epilepsy or it's not epilepsy. The diagnostic tests we commonly do will be EEG, MRI, and some blood tests. Once you know it's an epilepsy, you go to the neurologist. The neurologist will give you a treatment plan, other services, and a follow up. If it's not epilepsy, you may undergo more testing to find out why you had a seizure. It may be a brain tumor, it may be a stroke, it may be a hemorrhage into the brain, whatever. So when you get another diagnosis, you go to another specialist. Now, when you have been established as an epilepsy, there are two issues which are addressed by the doctor. One is you're given a clear treatment plan, which will be tablets, when to take, how many to take, what to take, all that. The second most important thing when we treat epilepsy is the lifestyle issues. Now, people with epilepsy need to make some adaptation in their lifestyle. One of the important adaptations that they should make is they should not miss sleep. They should not miss meals because the glucose levels, if they drop, you can trigger a seizure. They should not spend too much time in very hot sun because the ambient heat can trigger a seizure. They should not spend too much time on technology, going on looking at the computer and the phone and all that. Now, during the pandemic time, many patients who are otherwise fairly stable have had more seizures because of online classes, spending more time on the online and things like that. They should not watch television for too long if they have a particular type of epilepsy called photosensitive epilepsy. The other thing is they should take their drugs regularly at the same time, preferably every single day. So if they've got a schedule of 8 to 8, they should take it at that time, ideally every single day. They should not miss even a single dose of tablet. When you miss one or two doses of medication, the seizure that comes is actually worse than the primary seizure that you had. So never miss tablets. Very often, when a patient who's a known epileptic on treatment comes to the emergency room, the commonest cause for that seizure, the provocation, is the fact that they've missed their medication. The doctor will then monitor your outcome, make sure that you have seizure control. If your seizure control is poor, they will review and they will check if any other alteration has to be made or whether you're a suitable candidate for epilepsy surgery or whether you need referral to a specialist center. Our center is a specialist center and we specialize in difficult to treat epilepsy, which means the kind of patients whom no other doctor wants. The other doctors are frustrated, they're not able to control the seizures. Those kind of patients we work especially well with, and we can give a considerable additional improvement in such patients. So, if seizures are not controlled in time, what happens? They become intractable. That means they become drug resistant and they become impossible to control or difficult to control. This gives an additional burden on the person. So, people with intractable seizures, they endure additional burdens of social discrimination, stigmatization, social embarrassment when they fall in public. So, as with any chronic condition, epilepsy can be linked to a demoralization and a negative perspective of life and to disturbances of affect and mood. So, you can prevent your seizures from getting worse if you come for treatment early because 60% of people respond very positively to the first drug that they are given. Now, see about 47% become seizure free with the first drug. Another additional 13% can become seizure free by adding a second drug. And only another marginal, maybe 4%, will respond if we add a third drug. But 36% of patients, no matter what we do, can be continue to have seizures. Now, what is the importance of knowing this? That group can actually be evaluated if they will be helped by surgery. So many patients are helped by surgery, and I don't know if any of them are attending, but it can make a difference even in drug resistant epilepsy. So the message here is don't delay. Early treatment of seizures is more effective than late treatment, which may sometimes not be able to help you. So if you know in my knowledge, every single person knows somebody or knows of somebody who has seizures. So if you know somebody, please encourage their families and everybody there to take treatment early. Now we get into the theme of the this year for International Epilepsy Day. That epilepsy is not just the seizure. We talked all this time about the seizure, how to deal with it. People with epilepsy know that there's a lot more they go through. And we as doctors, we try very hard to work with all those aspects as well to improve them. Many of them complain of memory loss. There is a risk of injury when they fall with a seizure. Their confidence and self esteem is very often very low. They are treated outside with prejudice and discrimination. Many of them are not able to get employment, either due to the restrictions we impose on them as doctors or because the employer is not empathetic to the taking the risk of employing a person with epilepsy. You are not allowed to drive when you have epilepsy. Then you may be experiencing a lot of side effects of medication. And you may be socially isolated by others, you may socially isolate yourself. And most of them are afraid to go out, especially go out alone. So let us look at each of these aspects a little. Now, the impact of epilepsy is the neurological aspects. Okay, the age of onset, the seizure control, the duration, the seizure type, the multiple types of seizures, the etiology, the neuropsychological aspects, all of this also impact the epilepsy. The medication can impact the epilepsy. It depends on the number of medications, how high are the levels in the blood, what is the medication type, and if folic acid is more only in pregnancy, so we won't worry about that. So what is the consequence of that? What are the psychosocial variables? They're always having this hidden disability where they're afraid of seizures. Then stigma may or may not be present in their community or in their society. But you may imagine that people are treating you with stigma. You may also imagine people are discriminating against you. And adjustment to the fact that they have epilepsy. This why me, why I'm not like the other children, I'm abnormal, something's wrong with me. The locus of control, the ability to feel that they're in control of events around them. The changes in the life events which happen as a consequence of a diagnosis of epilepsy. How much support they have from friends and family. How much money the family has so that they can afford the treatment. And of course, the home environment of the child. It has been found that 53% of patients, they said there is some restriction in their activity of daily living. 46% had difficulties in concentration and memory. 39% said if they're adults with epilepsy, they were a little concerned about having children for fear that they will spread the epilepsy. 36% impaired ability to drive was a bother. 28% reported difficulties in relationships. They could not get close to people because they felt that they will be misunderstood, they will not be, supported. There are so many things. So there is a fear to get married, to enter into a romantic relationship. Once they get married with their spouse, with their work colleagues, there's an anxiety. 21% can have sexual difficulties because some medications can cause it, but now it's not such a problem, but it is existing in some people. And 16% said in spite of everything, there is discrimination at work. So we are now talking not just to the person with epilepsy, but also to family, friends, and you, even if you have epilepsy, of how you can educate others on how to minimize this impact on people with epilepsy. What is the natural progression of epilepsy? When there are comorbidities like stigma, anxiety, depression, a burden of normalcy. This is a very interesting fact. Some people with epilepsy, when their seizures go away, they find it difficult to believe they are normal. This happens sometimes after epilepsy surgery, when some completely the fits stop. And they have been having sometimes 8 to 15 seizures in a month. So this burden of normalcy, so the reason why that there's a burden of normalcy is once you don't have any more seizures, you have to take responsibility for your life. You have to start studying, you have to start doing whatever it is, you have to play your role in life. And many people are so used to being petted and pampered and overprotected and taken care of, they don't like to get normal. So this is a very dangerous thing which we have to look out for. So if you as a person with epilepsy is still dramatizing, actually there is one person in today's audience who is doing that. Despite the fact for more than 2 to 3 years we are telling her nothing is wrong with her. But it's because she's so used to all the attention that she was getting earlier when she had seizures that she's still taking advantage of it and using it as leverage to get her way. So resilience, social support, and cognitive impairment can be due to the anti-epileptic drugs also. When we talk about quality of life, we are talking about two types of quality of life. One is a resilient outcome, where the person bounces back and tries to live a normal life and everything. The other is a vulnerable outcome, which means they become more ill because once the diagnosis is given, a normal person becomes the sick person who's all the time saying, I'm not okay. Everybody in the family is saying, no, 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 don't trouble her. She's not okay. He's not okay, whatever. That is a vulnerable outcome regarding quality of life after a diagnosis of epilepsy. Drug resistance is dynamic, and so when we do difficult to treat epilepsy treatment, we can improve things. It doesn't mean forever you are refractory. When two drugs fail, the chances of your improving with more drugs becomes much less. Only about 20 to 40% of patients are likely to have drug resistant epilepsy. There are some types of epilepsy where we don't really know the cause. In those epilepsies, the drug resistance is more. And there are focal epilepsies, which is impact only one part of the body, generalized epilepsies, which are all four limbs will twitch and this thing, which can only 25% of those are drug resistant. Now let us look at memory loss. Why do we get memory loss? If you have a lot of seizures, you're going to be causing ongoing brain damage. This will definitely result in memory loss. Many of the anti-epileptic drugs, they have a sedative effect. They can also cause some kind of wooziness, a brain fog, uh, memory lapses, etc. But the good news is that the newer anti-epileptic drugs, the modern drugs, they are much better. They are less sedating. They have a better side effect profile, and they do not really interfere too much with the degree of alertness. And most patients, if they work on it, they get adapted to the medication, they adjust to it, and they can have a good quality of life and they can function independently and efficiently. But if the doctor chooses the exact appropriate drug for that type of fit and for that and gives an optimal dose. So, I, for instance, am very, very strict on the lifestyle measures because if you follow lifestyle measures very rigidly, the optimal dose of anti epileptic drug you need will be less. Because many doctors, what they do is they give you a little more. You'll have the side effects of the medication. But even if you miss a dose, or even if you not miss a dose, even if you miss sleep, even if you do something in the lifestyle thing, you may not get a seizure. It may not provoke. So I feel it's more sensible to keep an optimal dose with minimum side effects and be very rigid on the lifestyle issues. So, combined with adherence to lifestyle measures, this difficulty can be managed. For that, we have to educate you, and also you can be educated. You can go to school, go to college, aspire to get whatever degrees you want, and get employed as well. The risk of injury, though the treatment of epilepsy is not a cure, it is important to control seizures. So, most of the time, when we treat epilepsy, what we are doing is we are controlling seizures. We are not actually getting to the root cause of the epilepsy because in some instances we don't even know the root cause. But it's important to control the seizures to prevent, like I told you in the previous slide, memory loss, to prevent injury, prevent recurring complications. So people with epilepsy should be very careful near water. Near a water body, they have to be careful because if they have a seizure and fall into the water, they will quickly aspirate and die. Whereas if you fall on the ground, there's no fluid going into your nose and your lungs, so it won't bother you. They're also at risk if they're at heights, leaning over a parapet wall. That's a very common. Sometimes when they get a fit, they fall over. Working on a ladder, climbing for leisure, that is mountain climbing, I mean. Some carnival rides, because they take you high in the air and swing you, and then if you have a seizure there, there's a risk of falling. All of these are best avoided. Also, people with epilepsy should take care near an open flame because there's a risk of burns if you have a seizure. And that is why, if you have to do cooking and you have epilepsy, we advise you to use an induction oven which does not have an open flame and which cannot harm you even if you fall on it. Low confidence, low self esteem, I think we sort of discussed it. But many people with epilepsy are diffident. The fear of a sudden seizure at any time is a hidden handicap. They feel embarrassed about the problem, they hide it. And if others get to know it, they feel worse. Their self esteem goes down further. So, when others deny their problem, they are never adapt to it. So, it's important to accept that you have a problem, understand it with the help of caregivers, friends, doctor, take responsibility to do everything you can to improve the situation. So, when you do this, it gives you a locus of control, it gives you a sense of control, and it improves your confidence. So, when it comes to self esteem, they have difficulty in forming relationships with others. They hesitate to form friends because, supposing the friend finds out I have epilepsy, sometimes they have lack of social support. In school, they're isolated, they're not able to mix with anybody. They isolate themselves, the social isolation. Family overprotection. Now, this can go to a very extreme thing. A friend of mine, her son has epilepsy. He was 18 years old and they lived in Harrington Road and in a place near Loyola College. And from our house to Loyola College is just a short walk, very short walk. So in the evening, his friends used to come. They used to take him for a walk to Loyola College, and just in the college grounds, they'll be spending some time and coming back. She used to send her driver behind them. And that boy got very upset and irritated because at 18, you don't like to be controlled by your parents like that. The reason why she was overprotective was she was afraid he'll get a fit. But his friends reassured her, kept telling her, no, don't worry. We're there. If anything happens, we'll bring him back. But she didn't have the faith. And so that really messed up this boy's ability to get more self esteem. Another thing she would do is she'll send him in the car with the driver to my clinic. And she'll make 10 phone calls before he reaches my clinic. Has he come? Has he come? Has he come? So family overprotection can be taken to that extent. And that's, if you're a counselor, if you're a special educator, if you're a person dealing with people with epilepsy, you need to make sure that some freedom is given to the patient without endangering them. Then perceived stigma, already told about internalized stigma. You tell yourself that just because you're a person with epilepsy, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you're not, it's not worth trying something, etc. Loss of independence, driving, yes. Medication side effects, we've already told. So, when you look at stigma, discrimination, and epilepsy and disability, you'll find that the neurological insult is here, yes. There are genetic factors, head injury, I told you, at birth injuries, metabolic factors, developmental factors, etc. Age can be young age, adult age, old age, and they have epilepsy. What happens when you have stigma? The physical well-being is where the disability is. That is what we are taking care of. The social well-being is impacted by the stigma. The economic status further impacts the improvement from the disease. The neuropsychological well-being of the person, if it's not adequate, and the emotional response to epilepsy, all of these can impair the overall quality of life. And so it's very important for us to address all these when we look at prejudice. Discrimination is we have to convert this to this. We have to teach children, we have to educate children in schools, we have to educate teachers. I used to do a lot of programs going to schools and educating children as to what the real facts about epilepsy are, and how, if somebody has, how to support, how to help, whatever. Now, epilepsy stigma is not something that is unique only to India. It is a global fact. All over the world, so-called highly developed nations also, there is a lot of stigma. And psychosocial implications are seen in all cultures, but it's a dynamic process. The patient always has a fear of being different, and the perception of the stigma is always negative. So, do we know how to assess stigma? Do we know it when we see it? Very difficult. Stigma can have a lot of faces. To tell or not to tell, to let on or not to let on, to be or not to be, in which case, to whom, how, when, and where. That is what the person with epilepsy is going through. So, when they have to get married, should they tell they're going to get, they have epilepsy or not? Should they let on to their friends that they have epilepsy or not? Should they be normal, or should they feel, act in a different way? To whom can they tell? How can they tell? When can they tell? Where can they tell? Now, this is what the person with epilepsy is going through. And stigma can be both felt and enacted. Now, felt stigma is when I'm afraid that somebody is discriminating against me. Enacted stigma is when somebody actually does an act of discrimination towards me. So we have to educate our teachers, the police, the healthcare worker, the clerics, etc. These are a good group of people, because your church parish priest will be a good person who can convince family and this thing, not about the anti-stigma behavior towards people with epilepsy. So they can work with patients and family. Unemployment. The unemployment rate for people with epilepsy is double that of people without a disability. It's not the same for everybody. Many employers know the facts, but what happens when we've talked to employers, they say, I am afraid that if they have a fit on the workplace, I will be responsible for any complications. So we need to educate employers and tell them that epilepsy need not be a barrier. On the contrary, in the House of Commons in England, they found that the people with epilepsy who were employed in the House of Commons actually took less leave, did work better, and had higher productivity than those so-called non-epileptic people. So don't let ignorance get in the way of finding your perfect employee. The inability to drive can impair, especially young adults get very upset with this, and it can impair your ability to go to school, so your education, your leisure, your employment, etc. But it's very important for people with epilepsy to understand the risk which is involved in driving or working with moving machinery. The legal allowance for people with epilepsy is after they have taken, they're on medication, they're continuing medication. If they are fit free for 1 year, they can be given a license, a temporary license. If the anti epileptic drugs are being stopped or the dose being reduced for any reason, the license has to be surrendered. And there should be no seizures for 1 year without medication to renew the license again. So the inability to drive need not be taken in too uh, serious a way. You can be without driving for 3 to 5 years till you get fit free. Side effects of medication, unfortunate, unavoidable issue, especially when we have to give more than one drug. But the newer AEDs, I told you, have a better side effect profile. But the newer AEDs are more expensive, and in some rural areas and all may not be freely available. So it's very important both for the doctor and the patient. For the patient to inform doctor about the side effects, and for the patient, for the doctor to ask each time they meet the patient and titrate the drugs and adjust the drugs to optimal level, and adjust them as to whether, because we choose different drugs for male, female, age of the individual, if there are existing comorbidities, etc. Social isolation, discrimination, prejudice, stigma can lead to social poor self-esteem, reduced self-confidence. You impose yourself social isolation. So we have to educate everybody on how this is very important. Family, caregivers, friends, they are very, very valuable to make the environment conducive so that the person with epilepsy is capable, efficient. There are limitations, yes, but in spite of that, they can be part of the community. Fear of going out is more often than not induced by overprotection by the family. Going out alone, traveling alone, or living alone may not be practical. So most people with epilepsy can do what they want with a companion. There should be caution if a person is sitting on the pillion of a two-wheeler, as they can fall off if they have a seizure. I've already talked about caution at heights and near water bodies. It's very important to avoid excessive physical exertion, especially with exposure to too much sun. In heavy trekking, for instance, when you're getting out of breath, you're physically exerting, you're walking around in the high heat. Also, going to very high mountains with scarcity of oxygen is also not advisable. So when planning holidays, etc., you need to keep these points in mind. But at the end of it all, the word hope is a very important word. It is very potent for those with epilepsy and their family. Epilepsy does change your life, yes, but hope and faith can create strength. So all of us who are here today, who are gathered here today, let us do our best to help people with epilepsy to live a full life with everyone, like everyone, in spite of epilepsy. So there is hope after epilepsy, and we from Epicenter are indeed delighted that all of you have joined us today for this session in order to support and help people with epilepsy to live full lives. Epicenter is Epilepsy Institute and Center for Treatment, Training, Research and Education. I am Dr. Preetika Chari, the founder of Epicenter. I am both a neurologist and a neurosurgeon, and Epicenter is more than 25 years old and has extensive experience in dealing with people with epilepsy, particularly with those with difficult to treat epilepsy and who may be possible candidates for epilepsy surgery, which is the next best thing to cure if you're a suitable patient for epilepsy surgery.